how the teachings of Islam can help us prevent more sexual abuse scandals. Can the teachings of Islam help prevent more sex abuse scandals? On October 15, 2017, The Independent UK published this article headlined How the Teachings of Islam Could Help Us Prevent More Sexual Abuse Scandals, and subtitled, Harvey Weinstein is just another case of a powerful man abusing women because we live in a society that lets him get away with it. But we can change that, by Qasim Rashid. Now, I'm laughing here because, as we'll see, the author is extremely hypocritical, even in that subtitle. Before we get much further, know that we are not dealing with some exception to the rule here with this guy. This author is not a marginal voice. He is a mainstream voice. He is a best-selling author, a spokesperson for organizations, a professional lawyer, a visiting fellow at Harvard, a regular publisher for Time, The Huffington Post, Washington Post, Daily Caller, and CNN. He's also been published by USA Today, The Daily Beast, National Public Radio, Virginia Pilot, and so on. As it says in his bio, quote, Qasim regularly speaks at a variety of universities and houses of worship and interviews in a variety of media including the New York Times, Fox News, Pittsburgh Post-Gazette, Muslim Television, Ahmadiyya International, Huffington Post Live, Al Jazeera, NBC, CBS, Voice of America, among several other national and international outlets, unquote. He has also, quote, offered pro bono legal assistance to victims of domestic and sexual violence through the Virginia Poverty Law Center, unquote. This may not alarm you now, but remember this after you've seen this video that it should be very alarming that he works for victims of domestic and sexual violence. This video is a slight adaptation of my open letter to the author of this article. There is a link to this open letter in the video description below. It contains notes and references, by the way. I've tried to leave this as a comment on Rashid's article at The Independent, but it seems that they've disabled the comment section. I can't imagine why. So I sent it to the editors at The Independent, and I sent it via Twitter to Rashid himself, and I also tweeted to him a link to my open letter, which, by the way, is in the description below. Feel free to tweet this to him again and again and again, but also consider telling the editors and Rashid what you think of his article yourself. In this video, I will show that 1. According to the Quran's standards, it is nearly impossible for a man to be found guilty of raping a Muslim woman due to the inequality under the law. Hence, rape is an institutionally protected practice under Islamic law, Sharia, in accordance with the Quran. 2. Non-Muslim women, captives, slaves, quote, those whom your right hand possesses, unquote, as the Quran renders, cannot be raped, even if you rape them, because if you rape them, it's not defined as rape, according to the Quran. 3. According to Islamic tradition, Muhammad committed what we would call, in our civil society, marital rape on his child bride Aisha, who was very young and prepubescent. And this is viewed as a good thing, something for a man to try to live up to. Furthermore, in traditional Islam, child brides are lawful and socially sanctioned, which means the rape of these children, however it may be defined. So, with these three things being the case, is it realistic to say that the teachings of Islam can help us prevent more sex abuse scandals? This may be the last video you'll ever see on my channel. YouTube seems to have a similar bias as Facebook, and when I discuss this very topic on Facebook, I usually, though not always, get suspended or otherwise penalized. In fact, just quoting from the Quran or the Hadith on this subject, with no comment whatsoever, has resulted in my suspension multiple times. I have in the past quoted from the Quran, but attributed it to the Bible as an experiment, and have not been penalized for that. Only when I attribute the same quote to the Quran correctly do I get in trouble. So if you've been paying attention, these companies, Google, YouTube, Twitter, Facebook, Mozilla, and other companies have a regressive left bias, a bias in favor of Islam. And if you haven't been paying attention, if you don't already know this, I suggest that you try to learn about it, but don't Google it, because Google filters results according to their own regressive left and Islamist bias. So it is plausible that this video could get me in big trouble, especially when I already have 2 strikes recently. Well, at any rate, let's roll up our sleeves and get down to the details. This article reads, quote, I'm a Muslim and a civil rights lawyer with a special interest in advocating for women's rights. Yeah, sure. My advocacy is informed not just by the law, but by strategies detailed in Islamic teachings and the Prophet Muhammad's example to preempt sexual abuse. Unquote. However, In reality, this is the opposite of the truth, as I will show in a little bit. The article continues, quote, let's start by understanding two facts. First, a woman's attire, alcohol intake, marital status, and education level do not contribute to sexual abuse. Abusive men do. Second, sexual abuse doesn't happen in a vacuum. Indeed. The author gets it, but doesn't quite get it. Every level of society, social norms, media, and the government is complicit in prompting the rape culture that perpetuates sexual abuse. Unquote. Wow, what a hypocrite this guy is. Now, I'm not arguing about rape culture in the West because that would warrant a whole video just unto itself, but notice that the author is making a logical fallacy here. He's saying that Islamic culture doesn't contain rape culture, it's the West that has rape culture. Notice this presupposes that only one can contain rape culture and not both, which is, of course, a very juvenile, unexamined assumption. It's kind of like a child saying something like, I'm not the stupid one, you're the stupid one, as if there can only be one stupid one. How naive, or maybe dishonest, of this author. Moving on, quote, Islamic teachings and the Prophet Muhammad's example, remember that folks, provide a solution that no state truly can, unquote. Oh, I see. So the solution is a caliphate? A caliphate with Sharia law. No thanks, stupid. As I will show, such a system institutionalizes rape culture, partially by denying rape is rape. Indeed, it sanctifies some forms of rape, so that they are held up as good, ethical, and pious behavior. But we'll come to that later. But no thank you, Qasim Rashid. You should be deeply ashamed of yourself for suggesting that, you vile, little, deceptive... Alright, folks, moving on. Quote, yes, Islam implores accountability to the Creator, but rather than preach empty dogmatic theories, Islam instead prescribes a proven secular model. Unquote. Secular. Secular, huh? What an insult to the intelligence, at least for those who are intelligent. If you're not feeling your intelligence being insulted by that last quote, well, you're not very intelligent. A caliphate is the exact opposite of secularism. In a caliphate, the state and the religion are one. Secularism is what we have in the USA, with the separation clause of the First Amendment of the Bill of Rights of the Constitution of the United States of America, as well as Article 11 of the Treaty of Tripoli. See the link in the video description for that if you want more details on that. I could see why the author holds up secularism as a good thing, because it is. But the author is simply lying here. There is virtually no chance that this author doesn't know that the caliphate, or a caliphate, is the exact opposite of a secular system. You'll see why in a moment. Quote, in a recent internationally broadcast lecture given live before roughly 6,000 Muslim women, the Khalifa of Islam, unquote. Let's pause here. The author used the word Khalifa or Caliph, as in a ruler of a caliphate. Quote, the Khalifa of Islam said, quote, chapter 4, verse 2 of the Holy Quran clarifies that women were not created out of the body of a man or from his rib. Rather, the Quran testifies to the fact that men and women were created from a single soul and are the same kind of species. Unquote, unquote. Actually, that's not what it says there. Folks, look here. Chapter 4, verse 2 reads, quote, give unto orphans their wealth, exchange not the good for the bad, nor absorb their wealth into your own wealth. Lo, that would be a great sin, unquote. So is the author incompetent, or is he lying here? Anyway, the author continues, quote, thus, the Quran 4:2 first establishes men and women as equal beings, unquote. But, as we just saw, 4:2 says no such thing. 4:1, however, says something similar enough, though with different words, so maybe the author was just being sloppy. At any rate, we now see that the author is, at best, questionable, and that we should doubt whatever he claims. The author continues, quote, chapter 4:20 then forbids men from forcing a woman to act against her will, thereby ensuring women maintain autonomy and self-determination. This verse also commands men to consort with women in kindness, forbidding men from so much as thinking ill of their wives. This preempts emotional and mental abuse, unquote. Is that so? Well, we shall see. But let's look at the next verse, the very next verse, 4:3. As you can see, it says to not marry more women than you could treat fairly, but that this does not count for the captives that, quote, your right hand possesses, unquote. We'll see that phrase again. So, captives, that is, slaves or sex slaves who are infidel women who are less than Muslim women who are less than men. As we see in this verse, men can have multiple wives. Women cannot have multiple husbands. So, is this sexual equality? And why did the author omit this very next verse? It's called lying by omission. The author is lying. Islam is sexist, as we can plainly see. The author continues, quote, Chapter 4:35 furthermore prevents violence against women by forcing men to control themselves and never resort to physically harming women, preempting physical abuse, unquote. Again, the author is wrong. 4:35 says no such thing. See for yourself. Again, if we look at nearby verses, see here folks, we see the exact opposite of what the author claims is true. 4:34 reads, quote, Men are in charge of women because Allah hath made one of them to excel over the other. Further down it says, As for those whom ye fear rebellion, admonish them and banish them to beds apart and scourge them, unquote. Okay, scourge. It doesn't say stroke with kindness. Okay? It says scourge them. Alright? Well, maybe the author meant the very next verse, 4:36. Well, no. 4:36 also says nothing of the sort. And besides, we just saw that 4:34 already refutes the author's claim. The author is lying. At any rate, 4:36 again condones the owning of slaves. Female sex slaves. Hardly equality of the sexes. It's unacceptably barbaric. It's an inferior ideology. The author continues, quote, And when it comes to the Islamic concept of hijab, it is men who are first commanded to never gawk at women, and instead guard their private parts and chastity, regardless of how women choose to dress, preempting sexual abuse, unquote. Well, that's a claim. Does the author support this claim? As I've been supporting my claims by showing you what it actually says in the Quran? No. No, he doesn't support that claim at all. He just makes that claim. Now, you can read the rest of this article yourself if you're a glutton for punishment or if you want a good laugh. But the author has done nothing to establish his claims, and in fact, he's directed our attention to the fact that the exact opposite of what he claims to be true is true. Okay? We've just exposed him as a liar by simply fact-checking. And I think this is actually a very, very huge problem in the West. Too many people want to believe so badly that Islam is just good, and it's the exact opposite of what, say, far right-wing bigots might say about it. They want to believe so bad that they just simply believe when Muslims say Islam means peace, that it's all about peace, but there is an entire institutionalized, sanctified, and sanctioned system of lying. Look up Taqiyya, that's Taqiyya. Look up Kitman, that is Kitman. See for yourself. I'll probably do a whole video about that sometime. But before we move on from the rest of this article, remember that there's a link for this in the video description below. Also, at the bottom of the article, you can find the author's Twitter handle. Feel free to comment on the article and/or to tweet the author and tell him what you think of his dishonest, falsehood-ridden article. The article concludes, quote, Together we can employ a proven Islamic model that will stop this madness and reinvoke gender equity today in America and the world, unquote. Well, folks, I don't know about you, but I feel like I need a shower now just from reading this article. I feel disgusting. I'm just disgusted by this author. Sharia. In Islam, there is something called Sharia, which is Islamic law based mostly on the Quran and the Hadith, which is a body of literature that purports to describe the deeds and the words of Muhammad, the Prophet of Islam. Different branches of Islam do not all agree on exactly which books make up the body of the Hadith. However, most are in agreement. So let's read from the Quran now, folks. See, this is something that so many people just refuse to actually do. It's not very long. It's not very difficult to read. The Quran 2:23 says, quote, "Your women are your tilth for you to cultivate," unquote. A tilth is a soil sustainability for yielding crops, or its fertility. The verse continues, quote, "So go to your tilth as ye will," unquote. So this means that she has no right to say no to sex with her husband any more than, say, a field has any right to tell a farmer to not till it. This denies that marital rape exists. But marital rape does exist. A wife can say no to sex if she wants to, and if a husband forces sex upon her, that's rape. Only a savage, barbaric culture would deny this. So, I guess Islam can seem to decrease the rate of sexual assaults, but only by denying that some sexual assaults are sexual assaults. Seems pretty underhanded to me. The Quran 2:228 states that men are, quote, "a degree above," unquote, women. Hardly sexual equality there. The Quran 2:282 states that a woman's witness testimony in a court of law is worth half of that of a man's. Oh, but this is contradicted elsewhere in the Quran, some say. Well, yes, but not in the way that you think. You see, elsewhere in the Quran it says that a woman's testimony is worth 1/4 of a man's, and only if she's a Muslim woman. Because if she's an infidel woman, her testimony is pretty much worthless. Again, hardly sexual equality, and it shouldn't take much thought to see how this would perpetuate sexual abuse. But don't worry if you don't get it, we'll explain later. The Quran 4:24 says that it's forbidden to have sex with married women except for your captives. So if you have a sex slave, it's not a sin to rape her. But then again, that rape is redefined as not rape because she's just an object. She's something, quote, "whom your right hand possesses," unquote. The Quran 5:6 talks about purifying oneself after touching unclean things, like a toilet or a woman. In fact, after touching a woman, one can clean themselves with dirt. Okay? If you're using dirt to clean something, what does that say about the something? So, women are lower than dirt. Notice it doesn't say this about touching men or touching animals, but only touching women. You know, this is something you get from the three Abrahamic religions, Judaism, Christianity, and Islam. The idea that women are less than men, it's their fault, Eve is the one who's to blame, and etc. So much for sexual equality, huh? 24:4 through 24:13 establishes that a man's testimony in court is worth 4 times as much as a woman's testimony. So, for example, if a man rapes a woman in front of 2 other women, and all of these women testify in court that he raped her, but he says, one man says that he did not rape her, then as far as the court is concerned, he didn't rape her. So again, rape redefined to not be rape, hence institutionalizing rape. By the way, how likely is it that there would ever be 4 female witnesses of a rape? By definition, if a man rapes a woman without there being 4 women witnesses who would tell the truth in court, the rape is not rape. Virtually all rape then, okay, virtually all rape then is redefined as not rape. So this would deny that rape occurs when it does, in fact, occur. So again, this would not, as that author would have you believe, decrease sexual assaults. It would only increase denial of sexual assaults, and hence perpetuate, even encourage, and increase sexual assaults. Talk about rape culture. Wow. 3350 says that you could do what you want with your wives and with the captives, quote, "whom your right hand possesses," unquote, as that saying goes, and it's not a sin to do so. Again, women are possessions, objects, fields to be plowed, and so on. Talk about rape culture. So, I have established the truth of my claims 1 and 2 so far made earlier. 1. According to the Quran standards, it is nearly impossible for a man to be found guilty of raping a Muslim woman due to the inequality under the law. Hence, rape is an institutionally protected practice under Islamic law in accordance with the Quran. 2. Non-Muslim women, captives, slaves, quote, those whom your right hand possesses, unquote, as the Quran renders it, cannot be raped, even if you rape them, because if you rape them, it's not defined as rape, because of the Quran. But what about the third and last claim? Did Muhammad rape a little girl? For this question, we'll have to look at the Hadith, which is a body of literature that purports to describe the deeds and words of Muhammad, being the most perfect man possible who lived a virtually perfect life. Virtually everything he did was right and just, and therefore what he did and said was lawful in Sharia, and men should emulate him as closely as possible, saying what he said, doing what he did. Muhammad had a child bride whom he molested, and therefore, in Sharia, molesting child brides is lawful and holy and celebrated, even if denied to Westerners in accordance with taqiyya or kitman, which I mentioned earlier, which you should look up. It's lying permitted in Islam because it's deception used to protect Muslims. Yes, in Islam, it is okay to lie and deceive to make Islam seem less evil and less destructive than it really is in order to protect Muslims from being judged and punished by good, civilized people. Now, it must be said that, as in many other religions, in Islam there are different sects, and not all of these agree on everything, but virtually all Muslims believe that Muhammad was the most perfect person who ever lived, and that what he did was good and right, and that one should do their best to be as much like him as possible. With all this in mind, let us now ask, did Muhammad rape a little girl? Let's be clear, folks. Everyone has the right to say no to sex, and to refuse to have sex with their husband or their wife, or anyone else, of course. Marital rape is a crime in civilized nations, and for a good reason. Also, if a person cannot give informed consent, in other words, if they're a minor, or if they're drunk or on drugs, then it is rape. Children cannot give informed consent. An adult husband who has sex with a child, even within marriage, is, in fact, in reality, committing rape. According to the Hadith, Muhammad married a little girl named Aisha when she was 6 or 7 years old, and when she was 8 or 9, he took her virginity. The Hadith literature makes it very clear, as we'll see, that this was before she reached puberty. I will list passages from the Hadith. Sahih Bukhari, Volume 5, Book 58, Number 236, narrated by Hashim's father. Khadijah died 3 years before the Prophet departed to Medina. He stayed there for 2 years or so, and then he married Aisha when she was a girl of 6 years of age, and he consumed that marriage when she was 9 years old. Volume 7, Book 62, Number 64, narrated by Aisha. That the Prophet married her when she was 6 years old, and he consummated his marriage when she was 9 years old, and she remained with him for 9 years, that is, until his death. You getting the picture here, folks? This is really gross. I mean, this is disgusting. Volume 7, Book 62, Number 65, narrated by Aisha again, that the Prophet married her when she was 6 years old, and he consummated his marriage when she was 9 years old. Volume 7, Book 62, Number 88, narrated by Ursa, the Prophet wrote the marriage contract with Aisha when she was 6 years old, and consummated his marriage with her when she was 9 years old, and she remained with him for 9 years. Ugh, gross. Sahih Muslim, Book 8, Number 3309, narrated by Aisha, Allah's Messenger, may peace be upon him, married me when I was 6 years old, and I was admitted to his house at the age of 9. She further said, we went to Medina, and I had an attack of fever for a month, and my hair had come down to the earlobes. Rahman, my mother, came to me, and I was at that time on a swing along with my playmates. Okay, so she's playing with other kids, which in that culture means that she's still a child. In other words, she hasn't reached puberty yet. She called me loudly, and I went to her, and I did not know what she wanted of me. She took a hold of my hand and took me to the door, and I was saying, as if I was gasping, until the agitation of my heart was over. She took me to a house where had gathered the women of the Ansar. They all blessed me and wished me good luck and said, may you have a share in good. She, my mother, entrusted me to them. They washed my head and embellished me, and nothing frightened me. Allah's Messenger, may peace be upon him, came there in the morning, and I was entrusted to him. Nice women, huh? Pushing him off to an old man to be raped. Wonderful. Oh, that's not rape culture at all. Sure, because they deny that rape is rape. Sahih Bukhari, Volume 5, Book 58, number 234, narrated by Aisha. The Prophet engaged me when I was a girl of 6 years. We went to Medina and stayed at the home of Bani al-Harith bin Khazraj. Then I got ill, my hair fell down. Later on, my hair grew again, and my mother, Rahman, came to me while I was playing in a swing with some of my girlfriends. She called me, and I went to her, not knowing what she wanted to do to me. She caught me by the hand and made me stand at the door of the house. I was breathless then, and when my breathing became all right, she took some water and rubbed my face and head with it. Then she took me into the house. There in the house, I saw some of the Ansari women who said, "Best wishes and Allah's blessing and a good luck." She then entrusted me to them, and they prepared me for the marriage. Unexpectedly, Allah's apostle came to me in the forenoon, and my mother handed me over to him, and at that time, I was a girl of 9 years of age. Okay, so obviously this is recounting the same thing as the last one, just in a slightly different way, and the time frame is a little bit different, but there you go. Book 8, number 3310. Aisha, Allah be pleased with her, reported, Allah's apostle, may peace be upon him, married me when I was 6 years old, and I was admitted to his house when I was 9 years old. Book 8, number 3311. Aisha, Allah be pleased with her, reported that Allah's apostle, may peace be upon him, married her when she was 7 years old, and she was taken to his house as a bride when she was 9, and her dolls were with her. Okay, folks, her dolls were with her. Okay, if she had dolls, that means she had not reached puberty. That's what their culture was at that time. And when he, the Holy Prophet, died, she was 18 years old. Book 41, number 4915, narrated by Aisha, Mu'minin, if I'm saying that correctly. The Apostle of Allah, peace be upon him, married me when I was 7 or 6. When we came to Medina, some women came. According to Bishr's vision, Rahman came to me when I was swinging. They took me, made me prepared, and decorated me. I was then brought to the Apostle of Allah, peace be upon him, and he took up cohabitation with me when I was 9. She halted me at the door, and I burst into laughter. So there again, it seems like the same story, told slightly differently, but what matters is she was a child. Sunan Abu Dawud, Book 41, number 4917, narrated by Aisha, Mu'minin, if I'm saying that correctly. When we came to Medina, the women came to me and I was playing on the swing and my hair were up to my ears. They brought me, prepared me, and decorated me. Then they brought me to the Apostle of Allah, peace be upon him, and he took up cohabitation with me when I was 9. So there you have it, folks. According to many different volumes of the Hadith, Aisha was a pre-pubescent child when Muhammad not only married her, but also had sex with her. That is sexual assault. A child cannot give informed consent. And if you can't give informed consent, it's sexual assault. So, again, in Islam, according to their most holy scriptures, rape is okay in many different situations. Islam institutionally allows for rape, as well as slavery and other disgusting things. So the exact opposite of what this author of this independent article claims is true. Okay, folks, this man is lying, and not just lying about something unimportant, he's lying about fucking raping kids, okay? This man, this author, this disgusting pig of a person knows that within Islam, it's okay for Muslim men to rape children. He just has to own them as a slave or marry them first. That is disgusting. That is barbaric. That is savage. That is unacceptable. That should never, ever be allowed to exist on this planet, ever. But yet they're going to try to make it okay within Western culture. Just you see. They want to establish Sharia law zones where men, Muslim men, will be free to rape children in the civilized world, folks. Okay? We're not talking about some village where they have one donkey in the middle of nowhere where they're still living in the Stone Age. We're talking about in the civilized world. They want to be able to do this in the civilized world. And to some extent, they can, okay? Because already in Sweden, in Germany, in the UK, they are allowed to do this. They are, in fact, allowed to rape children, okay? Now, remember, folks, we looked at his bio and we saw that he offers pro bono legal assistance to victims of domestic and sexual violence through the Virginia Poverty Law Center. He has no business working with victims of sexual violence or working for them. Also, at the very bottom of his bio, we haven't pointed this out, but ready for this, folks? Remember the name of the child who was raped by Muhammad. Quote, Qasim, his wife Aisha, and their 3 children live in Virginia, etc. Unquote. Okay? His wife's name is Aisha. Isn't that just the insult on top of the injury right there? Disgusting. Again, folks, scroll down, see the links, see the Twitter handle for that author, see the link to that article. You can tweet at him, you can leave comments on that article, you can share this all over social media, share it with people who think that Islam is okay. And if you hear my words now, I guess I have not yet been banned from YouTube. Or maybe I have, and you're just hearing this on some other platform. Anyway, at any rate, you know what I say, peace, love, freedom, and equality. Thanks for watching, folks.